Welcome to Season 4 of the M-W Tactical Podcast. Sit back and enjoy the conversations of Rockstar Burst and myself, Michael Woodland, as we discuss the sport of shooting, goals, training, community matters, and everyday life. You are listening to the M-W Tactical Podcast. All right, good people, we're back at it again, and thank you for joining us for another installation of the M-W Tactical Podcast. This week's show is brought to you in part by CAE Transfers. And for those of you who are unaware, when you go to buy a firearm, you have to go through a FFL, and this is what CAE Transfers do. They are an FFL license here in Columbia, South Carolina. So if you are somewhere else in the country and you want to send a firearm to me, I would actually tell you to go through CAE Transfers. Because for one thing, CAE Transfers sponsors segment of the M-W Tactical Podcast, and they also sponsor me when it comes to shooting. So if you are interested in any type of way and you have any type of business with the firearms, look up CAE Transfers and let them help you out the best way they can. Now, also to let you know, I honestly think they have the cheapest rates in South Carolina when it comes to transferring a firearm. $20. You can't beat that. And I don't even know if he changed his prices or not, but that was the last thing I know was $20 for a transfer. All right, so head on over to Facebook, Instagram, and do a search for CAE Transfers and tell them Mike from M-W Tactical sent you. For everybody who listens to the show, once again, thank you. We really do appreciate it. And the emails are still coming in. And Rockstar by far is a favorite. So we're going to have to give her a round of applause when we bring her on to the show, because everybody asks me about Rockstar, so that's what it is. So Rockstar is partying like a rock star now. That's how I'm going to look at it. Now, of course, however you listen to the M-W Tactical Podcast, like I said, we are very appreciative of it. So if you're on YouTube, Spotify, or whatever your favorite streaming platform is, please go ahead and hit that follow and subscribe button, and you will get notified whenever we put up a new episode of the M-W Tactical Podcast. Now, of course, if you're on YouTube and you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, however you want to be notified, you will get notifications for any video we put up on YouTube. Now, also remember, on YouTube, we are doing a 1,000 subscriber giveaway once we hit 1,000. So please share the channel with your friends and let everybody know we will be giving away items once we hit 1,000 subscribers. Now, bringing forth the co-host of the M-W Tactical Podcast, some of you might know that I troll Rockstar, but this week Rockstar was trolling me. She's been beating me to the punch, and I was like, how is this possible? So maybe she got hip to my game, but we got to hear it from her firsthand. So without further ado, bringing forth the co-host of the M-W Tactical Podcast, Rockstar. What's going on there with you, Miss Rockstar?
I have been trolling you all week, haven't I?
Yes, yeah. You caught me off guard. I'm like, whoa, what's this? Oh my goodness, she done beat me. Yeah,
so much going on. It's like all these interesting news stories. I'm like, oh, I gotta send this so we can talk about it.
yes. So the first one you sent me, I was like, yeah, I called that one years ago, and now that is the talk of the nation going on right now. And then another one you sent me about the raid on the Amish guy for selling firearms. I was like, wow, that's pretty. I didn't even finish that article, but I was like,
It's on the Amish.
that's what I said. Like, they're innocent, but then again, I guess whatever community you're a part of, crime is relevant in some way. People always try to get over. So
Maybe the horse and buggy stealings are at an all-time high. I don't know.
But let me tell you about my first encounter with an Amish community. And it was just weird to me because it was like I took a step back in time, right? My grandfather on my dad's father, he was in a military retirement home up around somewhere up in the DC area, but it was outside of DC on the Virginia side. And I can't remember the city where I was at. It might have been, I can't remember exactly where it was. But when I went, I'm driving down this long road and looking at acres of farmland. And then all of a sudden, I come up on this horse and buggy. And the little kid was sitting in the back, and it creeped me out because I was like, yo, this is like spooky from a movie. And the little kid is just sitting there, blank face, big eyes, the Amish hat on, the little white shirt. And then, of course, I'm taking it he had pants on because it was kind of chilly at that time frame. And he was just riding in the back and just giving me a blank stare looking at me. And I was like, is he possessed? Is he zoned out or what? But then again, now that what I know, I do understand it better. But I was just freaked out the first time I saw that. So then when I was leaving that living facility that my grandfather was in, I went through a town and it was just weird to me because it's not nothing that I'm used to or nothing I was used to seeing growing up. So it was very different, very different. But of course, being in the military, I had a couple soldiers when they came through. They was telling me like they used to be a part of the Amish community, and they was educating me on some stuff. And it was weird, but around about that time frame, one of the soldiers was telling me it was a TV show. I forgot the name of it, but it was like a couple kids from the Amish community. I guess they was trying to live in regular culture. What would you call that? Americanized?
Yeah,
I
they
don't
they
know.
do that. It's like a thing. It's called Rumspringer, and it's like
Right.
they leave the community to for like a year or however long they go to like see if they want to be Amish or if they want to not be.
Oh wow. So they don't get looked down upon for that?
No, it's actually encouraged. It's like part of them like spreading their wings, and then they come back and they have to make a decision. They either have to come back and like commit to being Amish and like get married, or they basically denounce their Amish roots and they become part of the world.
Oh wow. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I really don't know anything about that way of living. From what I understand, their way of living is genuine to like how America was first formed, and they don't really venture from that too much. And do they even watch TV?
No, they don't use electricity. They don't have
Yeah,
phones.
that's what I
Yeah,
thought.
they're
That's
very
what I thought.
simple.
So very different, very different. But that article right there, I was like, wow, that was pretty wow. But the main one I want to talk about this week is the one about the National Firearm Registry. And that one was like, okay, now this right here can really change the way we live our day-to-day lives. And I don't think people really understand, the impact of what this can do to America as we know it. But after we take a commercial break, we're actually going to have an interview. Well, before the commercial break, I'm still talking about topics. I'm all over the place right now. But we're going to actually do an interview with a female firearms instructor. And her company goes by the name of Defensive Unicorns. So I'm not going to say anything else about her. I don't want to save it for the interview portion, you know. But after the commercial break, I do want to dive into the talk of the National Registry and maybe bring on my buddy Johnny, who is the owner of CAE Transfers, who is actually sponsoring this week's episode. and get his encounter of what he thinks and what changes has he seen since he's been doing FFL work. And it's kind of interesting being digitized, and so let's let's jump into a quick commercial break and come back and dive into the conversation, because I'm really interested to hear what you have to say, because I know you really dove into it. So, but everybody, if you will, if you're in your vehicle, go ahead and hit the cruise control. Pull down those sunglasses. If it's cold, turn that heat up a little bit, but make sure you got them seatbelts on. And then lay the seat back just a tad bit. And we'll be back right after these few words from our sponsors.
Are you in the market to purchase your first or next firearm, but find the atmosphere of a gun store intimidating, crowded, or uninviting? There's a way for you to purchase the gun you want while avoiding the crowds, the gruff salesmen, and the marked up prices that come with a brick and mortar gun store. The process is called a transfer, where the purchase is made at an online store and sent to a federally licensed middleman called an FFL, who processes the paperwork and background check for a firearm purchase. CAE Transfers is the FFL with the lowest transfer cost in the Midlands at only $20 or $15 with the presentation of a South Carolina concealed weapons permit and $10 for repeat customers. If you live in Columbia, South Carolina or its surrounding areas, choose CAE Transfers as your FFL during checkout and let me help you complete your online gun purchase. You can find and follow CAE Transfers online at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram using @CAE Transfers. Thank you for your business, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Mental health and guns. At Walk the Talk America, we are working with both the mental health community and the gun industry. Created by a gun industry veteran, Walk the Talk America seeks to raise awareness and create change through suicide prevention and firearm safety without legislation. We strive to eliminate the prejudice that firearms and mental health face. For more information and to support Walk the Talk America, please visit walkthetalkamerica.org.
Hey everyone, John from Outdoor Dynamics here. We're a remanufacturer of ammunition based in Kannapolis, North Carolina. We make everything from 9mm 115 grain to specialized 40 Smith & Wesson. So if you have anything from an open gun to just a standard Glock 19, feel free to reach out to us at outdoordynamics.net, or we're on Instagram and Facebook with Outdoor Dynamics. And we're always here for you. Happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, good people, we're back at it again, and thank you for listening to that commercial break. And before the commercial break, we actually stated that we were going to talk about this article that Rockstar actually came across, talking about a firearm registry here in the nation. And then, as many of us have already discovered, it has made big news across the board, and everybody is actually contacting their representatives, asking questions and trying to remedy this. But how can this be the demise of America as we see it and know it by a gun registry? So what are your thoughts on this, Rockstar, and how do you feel and how do you look at this?
Oof, well, I am very much against a registry. I don't think that it's constitutional for starters. And then I just think that there are a lot of doors that could be opened up towards the road of confiscation, which I'm also not a proponent of at all. So I'm very weary of any sort of registry or having the government know how many firearms anyone knows, what kind of firearms that they have in their household, any of that stuff. I'm very much of a, it's none of your business, Uncle Sam. I would like to keep it that way. And this particular article that I stumbled upon is from Zero Hedge, which is, I like that website. I feel like they do some good journalism. They do some deep dives into, really important topics. It's, I think it's a fairly reputable source as well. But essentially, the article starts off by saying, what proceeds gun confiscation as you look throughout history, and it's almost always a registry. And it goes on to talk about a couple different things. Well, one, the federal government has been trying to create something like this for quite a long time. And the Department of Justice, the ATF, this is one of their, this would be the creme de creme of what they're looking for as far as the Second Amendment and guns go in America. So it's usually sold to the general populace as, as most things, safety, right? It's about safety and keeping people safe, and how to, we can deter crime and stop crime, and you'll be a safer citizen if we have this gun registry, which is all garbage in my opinion. It's just a power grab, and they package it up with this pretty little bow and try to sell it to you like it's going to make your life better. But I don't think that it will. And it's a tool that they could use to enforce universal background checks, or taking firearms away from people who might be deemed quote unquote dangerous for who knows what, for actually being a criminal, or for something like mental health reasons. And I just worry that going down that road is kind of this point of no return, and it's it's not going to end well for for America. This article talks about that currently there has been a database that is about 1 billion transactions and records long, and about 850 million of those are digital, and the ATF has a hold of it. And it's just really interesting to kind of see that. And like I've thought about, when you go to purchase a firearm, you're typing your information into the computer, and you have to give your social and all of that stuff. And I've always been like, I wonder what they do with that. I wonder where that's going. I wonder who has access to that information. And it kind of sounds like that is the information is going, and that the ATF is creating this database and just keeping tabs on who has what, and who owns what firearm. So yeah, I'm not super thrilled about it. I think there's a lot of different things that we can kind of touch on, but that's kind of the high level of what the article entails.
Well, we also got to remember something, and let's backtrack this on history and just regular life as we know it. All right. When the computer was formed, that was designed for a way of entertainment, reached out to communication. Now everybody's looking at it for a means of making their workload a lot easier, processing whatever, paperwork, materials, whatever. And I remember when I was in high school, one of the teachers was saying like, the computer was made so we wouldn't have to be using so much paper anymore. And I was like, okay, cool. And then of course that was a whole conversation that we went into about how you store stuff and how that's going to change the way education. Look at us now, 20 something years later, 30 something years later, now looking at that concept, okay, maybe that was a true statement back then, but look at the deceit that went with that now, whereas back in 2006, that's when they started scanning all these, 4473s and everything else associated with the ATF. Now, supposedly, there were so many records, and not only 4473s, but it was like other documents, and a floor collapsed in this building where they was keeping these documents. So therefore, they went forth and said, hey, we need to go ahead and digitize this. Now, when everything got digitized and the word got out, Congress stepped in and told them they need to get rid of that. So they got rid of it, but then when they actually brought it back again, now it was, well, we don't have a way of tracking. But let's really think about this. Your kid can come up with something, because if it's digitized, right, you can put certain words, just like a PDF document. Control F, and you can put a word in, right, and then on that document it'll highlight all those words that it finds, the, and, but, truck, whatever word you're looking for. So I mean, that's not feasible to me. You know what I'm saying? But as you stated at the beginning, every time you look in history, when there is a gun confiscation, there was always some form of, hey, we need to know what you got. Now it's, hey, you need to turn it in. Oh, you don't turn it in, now you're considered a criminal. We're coming to arrest you, or whatever the case may be. But now, what about a data breach? Look at all the information that's on the 4473. Now, how many data breaches have we had in the last 2 years?
So many.
Yeah, and it was all what, medical reasons? And then think about the medical information that's on there, like on those forms. So, and your address, your name, full name, how many firearms you got, what you got, right? They can very much have a very detailed list, and this can get ugly very fast. But yeah, so now look at all the other nations that don't have firearms. Like, and one example I like to use because it's relevant to not being that long ago was World War II, right? So, of course, when Hitler was doing everything in Germany, that's what they did. They started that registry. Okay, well, bring in what you got. We're going to protect you. But look at how that turned out, right? Same thing happened in Venezuela not too long ago, a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So this is getting crazy. So, how do you think this is going to turn out? And do you think this administration is going to run with it, or they're going to uphold what was passed into law a couple years ago?
I think they're gonna wait to do anything till after the midterms. I don't think they're gonna do anything too drastic until that happens, because I think the Democrats are going to face major upheaval, and they're trying to mitigate that as much as possible.
Well, I think a lot of things are going to happen, and of course, I'm a firm believer in a politician is going to tell you what you want to hear until they get in office, and then they're going to backtrack, or they're going to try to make it sound like, well, I said I was going to do this. I never said I was going to. You just assumed this was going to happen, And is it right? Is it fair? I don't know. I just don't trust politicians, because obviously greed is in play, right? But I do believe that term limits need to be set forth for politicians. So if the president has a term limit, why doesn't Congress or the Senate? So what has actually, and I think having those term limits, it will correct matters that are not resolved. Let's put it like that. So even when you turn around and you look at it, okay, so let's look at the justice system. Justice is fair when you turn around and you look at it. It's just the people that are sitting in the seats that are not doing the right thing. So we're saying equality is what needs to be spread across the country. Okay, well, equality is not across the country in a fair manner, because depending on who you talk to, they're going to say like, oh, look, we got two different forms of America. You know what I'm saying? So why do you want one group not to have something and another group can have it and be good with it? So let's look at kids also. You got one group of kids that do something is looked at as, oh, they're undisciplined, they're unruly, this is how they're going to grow up to be criminals. But another group of kids do the same actions. Oh, they're just kids, they're just having fun. So turn that into society as a whole now. So is this gun registry going to be the means of, okay, you can have firearms, but you can't have firearms? Or, hey, we're going to get rid of this altogether. But will that be what it takes to bring the people together? So it's just a twist, turn, and what? Thoughts. Tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, well, honestly, it could go both ways, right? Like, in theory, when any politician is sworn into office, they're supposed to uphold the Constitution and protect America and do all these things. But I think a lot of times you see people who are influenced by outside dollars, and they get into office and they're not necessarily representing we the people or the Constitution or anything that we elected them to do for us. So that part is frustrating. And so I do agree with the whole term limit idea. And because at some point it stops being about servitude and it starts being about money. I mean, so many of those politicians leave office and they're worth millions of dollars, and their salary is, what, couple like $175,000 a year or something like that, and you leave and you're worth $10 million. Like, how does that happen? Mm-hmm. So I definitely see a lot of issues with the way that the government is currently running and operating. I'm not a fan of the they're not necessarily beholden to the voters. They're beholden to the people that are paying for their campaign or giving them the hookup once they leave office, or, once you're in that club, you're living in a completely different world than the people who voted you into office are. So I think that's problematic. I do hope that as we move more and more into a digital world, it's really hard to even say that something like this would go away, because I think that's just where we're headed. And it's so easy to collect information on people. And in, a perfect world, we would have politicians who were more concerned about privacy laws and really cared about our digital footprint and the information that's being collected. The problem is, like, half the people in Congress are like 80 years old and don't even know what the internet is. So there are definitely issues, just kind of the world that we live in versus the people who are representing us in said world. So I think that it's going to become an even larger battle in the upcoming years. I mean, I think we're going to see a lot of stuff and we're already seeing it in some countries with the COVID passport being a digital passport. And what other information and data and profiles are they going to be building on citizens? And you know what I mean? So it's like this whole digital era that we're entering. And as cool as it is, and as much as I like the consolidation of information and the convenience of it all, I also worry about the nefarious side of things, and how can that data be used against you, and how can, if people do people can already steal your identity and open up new bank accounts and things like that. But, at what point can someone steal your identity and really get you into a lot of trouble? And then, then I always think, like, well, what would stop the FBI or the CIA or some other organization from breaking into your account and framing you for something? You know what I mean? It can just be this completely, it all of a sudden becomes like a sci-fi movie.
That's pretty much how life is steering. But let's even look at it further. All right. So how many people wear a mask when they go to work? You're a gun guy or a gun person, right? You go to work, but the people who are responsible for your career or maintaining your career, the verbiage is not there, finds out you're a gun guy now. Do they turn their back on you? Do they fire you? You know what I'm saying? So like if that information was to get out, right? And perfect example, how many people are unaware of how many actors and actresses are heavily into firearms? Right. Now I can't say Halle Berry's a gun nut. I can't say that. But I can tell you that she dove into it pretty thick when she was doing her role for John Wick. You know, if Bad Boys wasn't, catered the way that it was catered, would you have known that Will Smith was a gun person? Right. And there are a couple other celebrities that I know are gun people, but I'm just not at liberty to say that because, some people actually said to me, hey, don't share this or don't let it come out. All right, cool. You know what I'm saying? But this gun registry, what if that was to leak out and it went to somebody who had something against somebody? Now they put it out. Now that's going to affect their livelihood, just off of, the representation that you're presenting yourself to be, because easiest way to say it, everybody who you see in front of a camera who talks tough is not tough. That's the easiest way to put it, because now when that truth comes out, now you're going to really see who they really are,
Right.
But one of those type things, but I am not a fan of the registry in any type of way, right? I believe some of the questions on the registry should not be there. But I also believe, why do you go through all that hassle to get a tool that's already associated with your social security number? Right. So either way you look at it, it's like you're going to walk into some form of a trap, depending on who you talk to and how they word it. That's going to have you slip up and so we need universal background checks. Oh, no, we don't need a universal background check. So then we need to do that. No, we don't need to do this. But like, how do you actually come up with a streamlined way of saying, okay, this is how we're going to do this in the event that everybody does the correct stuff they're supposed to do?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because even when you do a reverse trace on getting a firearm, isn't that some form of a registry in a way of thinking? Because you can actually trace like your firearm right now all the way to the factory and how many hands it went through. So it went through this distributor, went to this company, then it got shipped to this company, and then it got to you. You can actually, they can actually track that right now. Like if it was any type of investigation, in the sense of speaking. It's crazy. It's crazy. So how do we punch a hole in it? How do we get the remedy? I believe everything you're hearing right now, it's in conflict control. No, not conflict control. What do they call that when stuff gets chaotic and then people try to control it and keep it under wraps?
I don't know.
I used to have a first sergeant.
Damage
control. Yeah, damage control. I had a first sergeant that used to always say that. Oh, we're in damage control. Got into a firefighter. How's that damage control? They shot at us, But I think right now, that's how it's going to be looked at. And then you're going to get a bunch of excuses. Oh, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. And then after the midterm elections, now you're going to see them run forward with everything.
Yeah, full speed ahead.
Yes, that's what I believe. Just like the whole COVID situation. I've been telling everybody, I was like, all these restrictions and all this nonsense, it's going to be lessened right around the midterm elections, and I think I heard somebody talking the other day saying something like over in Europe, they're removing the restrictions, and they're just like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, it's just like the seasonal flu. But wasn't we saying that 2 years ago?
Yeah, right.
You know, but I don't know. So I wanted to actually get my buddy Johnny on, but he's saying he's busy, so we're gonna have to save that conversation for a later date. But I want to go ahead and dive into another commercial break and have this interview with Defensive Unicorns. And now, to let everybody know, I don't know who Defensive Unicorns is, what they do other than firearms. This was somebody that Rockstar actually met at one of the train and learn events that she went to. And she's actually had, interactions with the person. And she says the female is very positive, which I believe that's what the firearm community needs, more positive figures in it. Now, I went on her Instagram and her website and started looking up stuff, because that's what I do whenever I talk to people. I try to learn a little bit about them. So I let them know, like, okay, I know this about you, and then it's going to open up a little bit. But I'm actually looking forward to that. So hope you got your questions together. But let's go ahead and dive into this commercial break and bring on Danni from Defensive Unicorns and talk to her for a little bit. All right. So if everybody will, please go ahead and refresh your drinks, utilize the restroom if you have to, come on back, and here are a few words from our sponsors.
JM4 Tactical has developed a state-of-the-art polymer holster that will quickly become your go-to holster. With high-quality Herman oak leather securely sewn to the interior of the molded outer bolt-on shell, your draw becomes silent and no more scratches up and down your firearm. When seconds count, you can rest assured that you will have the upper hand when you need it most. Whether you carry open or concealed, the Relic Holster is available in 4 different models, fitting over hundreds of different style guns. The new reliable, easy, light, individual carry holster by JM4 Tactical. Order your Relic today at jm4tactical.com.
Hey, this is Brian Conley at Hunters HD Gold. If you've never tried Hunters HD Gold, then I challenge you to find me at a match next year. Go to the website under scheduled events, find out where I'm going to be. Come meet me in person and demo a pair for yourself. Find out why shooters across the United States are changing to Hunters HD Gold to get 43% more light to their eyes, better contrast, eyes that are not fatigued at the end of the day based on the colors that we use, and find out the real meaning of why they change so you don't have to. So check us out on our website, huntershdgold.com, and I look forward to seeing you at the range soon.
What's up, good people? Thank you for taking the time and listening to the M-W Tactical Podcast. Please go visit the M-W Tactical store at www.m-wtactical.com/store and help support our efforts by purchasing a shirt or two. If you haven't done so, go follow us on Instagram and Facebook by searching for M-W Tactical. All right, good people, we're back at it again, and thank you for sitting through that commercial break. And as we stated at the beginning of the show, we have someone here that we're going to interview, and she goes by the name of Danni. And as I stated at the beginning, this is Rockstar's friend. So y'all already know Rockstar has been trolling me all week, and she was the one that said, hey, I know somebody interesting that we can bring on to the show. So she reached out to her, she said yes, and she is now here. So let me ask Rockstar, because now what we did was we flipped the roles. So now we got Rockstar on the phone, because I was like, you're on timeout, get off the camera, you're on the phone, So she was like, okay, well, I'll be listening, but I'll be talking behind your back. So, but let me ask you, Rockstar, what do you know about Danni and her training and her involvement in 2A?
Yeah, so I met Danni at the Train and Learn event last year, which was awesome. It was a really great group of women who came out and just, we really bonded. I think we were all really open-minded and excited to be there, and we all had a lot to learn from one another. And Danni was just someone that really stood out to me. She's super sweet. She's very professional. She's got a really empowering story. And I do think that it's just really important that we get more and more women in the 2A space. And, she is an instructor. She's training avidly. She posts really good content on her social media. So she's someone who is really, walking the walk and talking the talk. And she's just a great resource. So when I was thinking of people who can add value to the show and to the audience, she came to mind. So I'm really excited to chat with her today.
Hey, there you have it. So let's go ahead and bring forth Danni from Defense of Unicorns and hear what she has to say and welcome her. And we're going to learn about her together because, like I said, I never heard of her until Rockstar said something. So without further ado, bringing forth Danni from Defense of Unicorns. Welcome to the M-W Tactical Podcast. So how's it going for you there, Danni?
I'm doing good. Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited.
Hey, that's it right there. So starting off, since I don't know who you are, and we just roughly talked for a couple minutes before we came on air. Who is Danni and how did you come up with Defense of Unicorns?
Okay, so I am a female instructor from Philadelphia. I have now moved to Georgia where I'm trying to also do training. I've been doing training with some private lessons out here, but I haven't gone mainstream yet. But I do have a good amount of classes I'm doing in Philadelphia. I'm also a domestic violence survivor. So that's what actually brought me to the 2A is I went through a domestic situation in my past marriage. And I didn't have a lot of resources. So I wanted to be able to eventually provide more resources for women that were going through what I went through. And one of them resources was being able to defend yourself. So that was a big goal of mine. I'm also a mother of 3 boys. And yeah, that's me.
All right. So now you have to educate me on this because of domestic violence is something that's not in my realm. Right. My thing is like if I ever get into a disagreement with somebody, I just walk away.
It's the smartest thing to do.
Yeah. And I understand a lot of people are not geared or wired like that. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't believe in arguing with somebody. I believe in if it does get heated, separate for a little bit, come back and talk, resolve it and move forward from there. Like I said, a lot of people are not wired like that. So could you or are you willing to tell your story and how was the involvement with the domestic violence side of it, meaning the resources of people that was helping?
All right. Okay. So of course I would share because I want, to be able to let people know what I went through. So people that are going through it can, know that there's other ways. But I was married, like I said, and my husband at the time was at the wrong place in the wrong time. And he got into, I guess you could call it incident. There was a shooting and he got hurt. And at that time, they put him on Percocets, pain pills. So he just became like a whole nother person from them pills. And he had a lot of self-esteem issues because, he couldn't work and he could work, but he didn't want to work. He just had a lot of stuff that was going on. So I guess I was the punching bag at the time. So I sort of tried to, be as comfortable as I can when it came to talking to him about stuff. I would be like, it's okay, you're going through this. And I guess some people would say I sort of babied him through his situation. And it just made it easier for him to sort of, blame me for everything. So as time went on, it started with just the yelling and the verbal abuse. Then from there, it became like the mental abuse, like pretty much like, oh, you think you better than me, you ain't nothing. And at the time, I already had 2 children. So it was just me trying to, I guess, sort of deal for them was like the biggest part for me. And then I also didn't want him to feel like he went through what he went through and then I left. So I'm also a nurse. So I tried to stay with him and do everything I could for him medically, to help him get back to his normal health. And he got back to his normal health, but he just never got back to where he needed to be mentally to him. So as time went on, it just, like I said, a lot of verbal abuse, and then became controlling, like controlling my money, what I did with my money, where I go, taking my car, stuff like that. And then from there, it became like, if you don't do this, I'll make a scene in front of the kids, and him knowing that I would protect my kids no matter what, that was like sort of his way of always getting over. And then after a while, I started to try to plan before, like, so when he would go certain places, I would know that he would come home and there would be some type of reaction. So I started to like, oh, I'm gonna take the kids over to my mom's house, or, I'm gonna stay out, or I'm gonna do this. And then that's when it became like the physical of like, oh, you think you slick, you trying to do this. Or I stopped carrying cash and I started having my card, so then he couldn't just take my money, but he knew that I was like trying to be a step ahead of him. So then everything became like super physical really quick. So it came like a grab to like a choke and stuff like that. And then me trying to avoid things happening in front of my kids, I started just giving him whatever it was that he wanted. But it was just a lot. It was a lot. For one thing, bills weren't being paid. So our livelihood was at stake. So it got to a point where it's like, I had to figure it out and, stop things from what they were. I did call the police a couple times, but I also was a person that I did still really care for him. So it was like, I thought about him having, at the time he had a heart condition. So when I say he got shot, he actually got shot in his heart. But he actually lived, he healed perfectly from it. But I was always afraid he would go to jail and he would die in there, get some type of a sickness or something like that. So I tried to avoid the police thing for a while. But when it just got too bad and I started noticing that my kids were noticing the abuse, I started calling. But at the time, being married to somebody and y'all being on the same lease, it was really hard to, get him out of the house or get anything done. So.
I got you.
Well, that's I'm really glad that you shared your story, and I'm sorry that you had to go through that and had to deal with a situation like that. I watched one of my best friends, her husband went through sort of a similar situation. He was a construction worker and was injured on the job and ended up getting hooked on painkillers, and he didn't turn abusive, but he did turn basically into just a thief because he was trying to fund his pills and just it was wild. So you're I can sympathize with your story. One thing that I think you brought up a couple of really interesting points, right? I think one was, trying to kind of like be a step ahead, right? Like, if he went a certain place, he was going to act a certain way, or, if you had cash on it, he was going to take it. How has that mindset helped you in your firearms training? How is it like being a step ahead?
I feel like it helps a lot. I feel like, even then when, of course, it didn't always help the way I wanted because he eventually caught on. But at the beginning of me doing it, you know, I was a step ahead of him. And I definitely did pay attention to things like, you know, his mood changes and, you know, when certain things he would do or he would say, I would be like, oh, his money is running out, you know, just paying attention to certain things. I'm like, oh, he's going to hit me up for money soon. So I feel like when it comes to now, my life period, it's like I'm always trying to pay attention to everything that's going on around me. So when it comes to me training other people, it's the same way. I tell them, like, you know, pay attention to your surroundings, you know, pay attention to things that's going on around you. So many people, they self-focus, which is, it's a good thing to self-focus, but at the same note, you have to be able to be mindful of what's going on around you. So many people don't pay attention to that. So opening people's eyes to like, did you notice this? You know, like sometimes I'll have a class and people will come into the classroom through the range and I'll ask them something like, oh, did you see the lady in the front with the red shirt? And, you know, so many people are like, what lady? You know, they're not paying no attention. And to me, it's like, it's red, it's bright. So I feel like it's eye catching. I'm like, you really didn't see that lady, you know, like right in the front. Like, no. And then I'll sort of point out like, see, you know what I mean? That could have been a threat to you. You know, you just never know. So it's just paying attention to stuff that's going on. And then when it comes to stuff like home invasions or, you know, now we have all the carjackings and stuff like that, paying attention to stuff that's going on around you. You see somebody walk in front of you and then they circle back and they walk, you know, paying attention, knowing now, okay, I'm across the street or I'm gonna go where more people are so I'm not by myself. So I try to tell people all the time, just pay attention to what's going on. It definitely helps.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's valid points. As far as being situationally aware of your surroundings and what's going on, so you're not a victim, just not a domestic situation, but any type of situation.
Right.
Because everything that's garnered right now, from the pandemic to people not having jobs, people are going to start taking stuff. Just to make means for what they need to do for survival and their family, if possible.
That's so true.
Yeah. So now, earlier you said like you wanted to get involved with the different groups and possibly opening up or starting a nonprofit to give more resources for domestic violence victims. What disadvantages did you come across when you was seeking out the help that you wish somebody would have been like, okay, this right here could have been an avenue you could have took that made your experience a little bit more helpful?
To be completely honest, and there's no shame to the police or, you know, the way the industry, like the everything works at City Hall, but when I went through what I went through, for one thing, when I actually got, I guess you can say, where they actually filed me as a domestic violence survivor, I wasn't allowed to own a firearm. So that was a big thing that I think was totally wrong, because he can have whatever he wants, you know what I mean? Because he wasn't charged with anything. But me making the phone calls and pretty much asking for help, it made me like a red flag. And then another thing was nobody never told me anything about protecting myself. You know, I even met female officers that came to my house and they're like, hey, you know, go get a protection order. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, so how does that work? You know, and they're like, oh, you go to the office and they'll explain it. I'm like, okay. You go down there, you sit there for hours. It's a headache, a really bad headache. You sit there for a whole bunch of hours and then you got somebody really questioning you, like, do you really want this? And I get it. A lot of people, they go do it and they don't follow through with it. I understand. But it's like, if you're making it so much of a hassle, you're going to turn a lot of people away, you know? And even at this point, I still tell, you know, survivors that I know to get that paper trail, because it's really important in the long run. If something is to happen, you know, you have that paper trail. But to me, like, the protective order did nothing for me. I had 2 protection orders. I had one which the court gave me the first time they came to my house, and I had like seriously like fingerprints on my neck. and had like passed out. and then I woke up, I called the cops, they came, they took me to the office, they took pictures. I went down to district, they took pictures, and then they gave me a pamphlet. The pamphlet had my doc number on it. And then I went down to City Hall where they gave me an emergency protective order. I was like, okay, cool. He was still on my lease at the time. We were still married because you can't just get a divorce that quick. You know, even if you file it, it's a whole process. So I was trying to get him off my lease, which was also a very hard process because being he had the heart condition that he had, me trying to get him off the lease was like me kicking him out on the streets, you know, and he wasn't healthy. So it was it was a super hard fight. And then the protective order was like, oh, it can't come but so close to you. But at the same note, it's like you had to go to court with your abuser and prove that he was an abuser. And then also had to deal with this person because they still weren't really off your lease, you know. So if he could come to the house, he could come to the house to try to get stuff or see the kids or whatever situation was. But at the same note, I had this protective order that's supposed to say that he has to stay, you know, a certain amount of distance from me. So it was just real messy. It really didn't make any sense. So they wound up, it didn't make any sense.
I was about to say, and not to interrupt you.
Yeah.
So you going to court to face your accuser.
And who didn't come? He never came. So
right, so now let's say if he did come, and like I said, I don't know you or your personality, but what if you were somebody who was in the same room with this guy trying to explain what took place with you? And
I had to do that later.
Yeah, and a lot of women can't do that because now it's like, if I say the wrong thing and he runs into me, you know, it's.
And then you go outside. So I did wind up doing the court thing later. I actually wound up doing that during my divorce because he tried to get alimony from me. So I wound up doing that because of my divorce. And when I did that, I had to explain, you know, my abuse. So I had pictures, I had doc numbers, you know, I had everything. And he was there. And when we left court, he was just right in the front of the court with me. I had to go back inside there to feel safe. Like nobody walked me out. Nobody made sure, you know, we didn't leave at the same time. It was crazy.
Wow. So now through that ordeal, obviously that was your motivation to, like you said, to protect yourself. But now how did you take that motivation and steer it to, I'm gonna become a firearms instructor versus I'm just gonna learn how to shoot a firearm and protect me and my
kids. Myself? Yeah. Right. So I started out, like I said, wanting to protect me and my kids. And then from there, I wanted, because I have an older son who I felt was old enough to start training. So I wanted him to get trained. I had someone else train him at first because, of course, I wasn't an instructor. Then as time went on and I trained myself, you know, I just felt myself always teaching him more. But that still wasn't even what made me want to be an instructor. What did it for me was I would go to the range and I would see some males, usually a boyfriend, sometimes an instructor, teaching females. And it was just a very, I would say a very aggressive lesson. So a lot of times you would see them, it's like, yo, just shoot in the middle. You just hit in the middle, you know, and it's just certain ways it could be me personally, because I have met some other females and they're like, oh, I don't mind, you know, someone aggressively pushing me while I'm learning. That's perfectly fine. But I know me as a survivor, that's really hard for someone to like bark orders at me, you know what I'm saying? Or for somebody to be yelling at me and put me under all that pressure. I can't learn that way. So I was just watching them and, you know, I was seeing like how terrible they were doing. And I'm like, I feel like it's because of, you know, the way it's being taught. So I would try to, you know, sneak up, not being an instructor myself yet, And I would try to wait for, them to separate because I didn't want to cause any conflicts. And I'd be like, hey, just try this and, try taking a deep breath and try doing different stuff. And after going to the range so many times and just running into women at the range and them asking me for help and me helping them, people started asking me like, yo, you should be an instructor. Why you're not an instructor? And then I started thinking to myself, like, maybe I should, And then from there, I just continued my training. And then I went and did the certification test and it just went from there.
So now, you said at this point in time, you felt like your son was old enough.
Yeah.
Now how many children do you have?
So I have 3 boys. My youngest is 5. Then I have a 13-year-old now and an 18-year-old.
Okay.
But at the time, when I started, my oldest was about 15.
Okay. So let me ask you, what age do you think is appropriate for children to be taught firearms?
Honestly, I think it's different for each child. I feel like you can tell the maturity of your child, especially if it's your child, them.
Mm-hmm.
If they're able to, for one, keep ears on because you don't want somebody that's taking the ears off and on. As long as they can do everything in a safe way and you feel like they're mature enough to take in the education, they're ready.
Yeah, so that's a question that gets asked to me all the time. And that's my answer is it all depends on the maturity level of that child.
Yeah.
Now, for me, and by me doing competition shooting, of course, I would like to push my daughter into competition shooting.
Right.
But I also understand the importance of her developing and coming up with her own interests. Because like even when I look at myself when I was growing up, my father was trying to push me and my brother to learn how to fix on vehicles. I never had a desire to become an auto mechanic.
Right.
But I did pick up on stuff okay, I know how to do this as far as fixing a car.
Yeah.
It wasn't my interest. I knew I didn't want to make that a livelihood. It was just, okay, that's a necessity for life. You know what I'm saying?
I think a lot of parents do that. My dad wanted me to be a foot doctor. So
something to help out.
Right. Like I got bad feet. So you need to be a podiatrist. Like, okay.
All right. So now, so when you said like you had went through your training, at what point did you start your instruction certification? Because that's how y'all do it up in Philadelphia, right?
Yeah, I actually did mine in where did I do it? Maryland. Yeah, I actually went to oh my God, why is his name not coming to my head? I got a brain freeze. Yeah, I actually went to Maryland to do mine. They weren't really doing them in my area at the time. The actual instructor cert. So I went to Teller Defense training and I went out there and got mine done by Akil Bay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like I was telling Rockstar a few times when we were talking, like I think people in the military and ex-police officers give the 2A community a bad name. And when I say that, I'm saying it more along the lines of that's what people, I used to be in the military.
Yes.
And like I told Kevin, KD, and I tell everybody, just because you're in the military doesn't mean you know how to shoot. And I had to prove that to KD one time. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But the thing, it was different for me because of the fact being infantry, that was my job. I had to know how to shoot, right?
Yeah.
Especially as a leader. But what if I was a cook in the military?
Yep, that's completely true.
Medical.
Some people never go, past the training. So,
Well, in the Army, it was only required that you go to the range 2 times a year to qualify. You know what I'm saying? But infantry is different because our job is shooting and
to shoot.
got to be accurate and all this.
Of course.
but I just don't like it when people abuse that notion.
Yeah,
You know
and
what
it
I'm
gets
saying?
abused a lot. It
Yes.
does.
Yeah.
Especially at the range. I run into that at the range a lot. Even like I said, the boyfriend, girlfriend, the wife, husband, I go there and you know, I'll be shooting and she might be watching. And I say, hey, come on, like you want to try, you know, try to get her in, and she'll come in and I'll help her. She'll be excited, like, look, you know, I hit the target, you know, and he'll be like, well, you know, I'm military and I did this. And it's like, okay, you know, like I'm not going to argue with you, and I'm definitely not going to, it's up to her. If she wants to take my number later and give me a call, fine, you know, but
Yep.
that's as far as it's going to
go. Yo, you have any more questions, Rockstar?
I think. No, well, actually, I do have one question just about, you talked a little bit about kind of like what your future might hold. Obviously, you just moved to a new location. Where do you see yourself? Like, how do you see yourself expanding as both an instructor and a 2A advocate, you know, coming up in the next year or two?
So like I said, still building here. I definitely have been reaching out to a lot of the domestic violence groups that's out here in Georgia. One of my hardest things is that, of course, domestic violence groups don't want firearms involved. That's almost everywhere. I understand it to a certain extent because they look at it as, you know, self-harm. And I get that. But at the same note, a lot of my students are domestic violence survivors. So it's like, I feel like there's a certain point where you have to be able to, you know, start thinking about training yourself or your kids to defend yourself. I wouldn't say go through something right away and then go buy a firearm. You know, that's not going to solve anything. But I do think that it's something that should be able to be spoken of, even if it's hand-to-hand protection, you know, just anything. I feel like you're blocking them out by being like, oh yeah, you got to call the cops. The cops are going to save your life. You know, like everything is from the cops. And it's like, I just feel like it's not fair. But at the same note, I have been through so much domestic violence wise that I'm willing to just go to groups and just talk about what I've been through. I'm willing to go to groups and be like, hey, I was in your shoes and now, you know, I'm here. Even if I don't talk about the firearm stuff, like just the mental behind it, you really go through a lot. From loving somebody so much that abuses you and being able to separate that love for that person to have that love for yourself, you know, to be like, I have to love me more. You know, I have to care about my kids. I have to do all this stuff and being able to separate it and not feel like a bad person. Because when you go through stuff like that, you fall in this pit where you sort of, you're like, did I do the right thing? You know, you're like, is there something else I could have did? There's so many feelings that you go through when you become a survivor. So, and then being able to trust somebody again or love again, that's a big thing. And being able to be happy. Some people are so depressed because they just can't find a way to really move on in their lives. So being able to just talk to people and, you know, show them there's something better at the end, you know, that's big for me. So I plan on at least being able to start a nonprofit and trying to give people resources, good resources. When I went through, the most that I got was a protective order and a shelter. A lot of mothers with kids don't really want to go to a shelter. It's really last resource. It's like your last, literally like you have nothing else because you're around strangers, your kids are around strangers. It's not always the cleanest place. There's just a lot that comes with it. People steal from you. You could still get harmed. Your kids can get harmed. They're doing a lot better, but a lot of them places aren't really supervised the way they should be. So I want to be able to provide good shelters. I want to be able to provide, even if I get, money saved up where if somebody's like, I have to leave right now and I could pay for their hotel for the night, if I could tell someone, hey, I could give you some money to start this bank account that your husband won't know about and you can save money here, because sometimes it's taking that little bit of money or that little bit of time to go try to set up something, to plan ahead that can be very damaging to somebody in a domestic violence situation. Because if you get caught, then it's like once an abuser knows that you're really going to leave and you're planning to leave, it's a whole nother situation. It's way worse than it is when they think you're just going to deal with it. So a lot of people that's on the outside looking in, everybody's favorite line is, why don't you just leave? Why you ain't just leave? And they don't understand it's way more to it than just leaving. You have to safely leave. And then if you have kids, you have to have somewhere to go,
Right.
So I want to be able to give people them resources of where you can go. Tell them, yeah, paperwork is still important. Get your protective order, but at the end of the day, don't depend on it to save your life, tell people about training. Like I said, even if it's hand-to-hand combat, whatever, just learning some stuff that can save your life. Paying attention, like I said, thinking ahead, all types of stuff. I want to be able to just help people where I didn't have that help. Even firearm classes, if people get to that point and I can provide them with free firearm classes where they don't have to pay out their pocket, because I'm sure they don't have it, just whatever I can do. So that's what I want to do in the future. I want to be able to provide that for domestic violence survivors. I want to be able to just keep helping women. I want to be able to teach the kids. We got so much kids that's learning on the streets. I want to, try to help wherever I can with that. And I feel like if you take if you take the experience and you go about it safely, when they come across that same situation in the streets, they're not interested anymore, because it's like that's old to them now. So I feel like if we could provide that for more kids, we could definitely make a difference.
Right.
Yep.
So now I want to go into a section. These questions are going to be a little bit more difficult for you, but they're fun. They're fun.
Okay.
All right. So I call this quick fire.
Okay.
All right. So now you got to put on your thinking cap. So you ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right. So here we go. Now, whatever I say, it's however you think about it. You set the situation. So like if I happen to say 9mm or 45, and if you happen to say is it self-defense or is it real life, it's your determination, whatever you want it to be. All right.
Okay.
So here's the first question. Loyalty or respect?
Look, I'm ready to ask you a question. Like, am I giving it or am I receiving it? Like,
however you want to proceed it.
Okay. Yeesh. Loyalty.
Okay. All right. Full size or compact?
Compact.
Okay. One in the chamber or not?
Chamber.
All right. Iron sights or red dot?
Red dot.
Smith & Wesson or Glock?
Glock.
Open carry or concealed carry?
Conceal.
Okay. Stock sights or fiber optic sights?
Fiber optics.
Kydex holster or leather holster?
Kydex.
Safety or no safety?
No safety.
Okay. All right. SHOT Show or NRA?
SHOT Show.
Indoor range or outdoor range?
Outdoor.
Rain or extreme hot?
Rain.
Speed or accuracy?
Accuracy.
Okay. And Jesse Harrison or Julie Galop?
Who is that?
Oh, wow. Okay. If you don't know, no, don't worry about it. Well, both of them are competition shooters, right?
Oh, see, I don't watch that much competition. I need to.
Yeah, both of them do. They're very active with female engagement in the firearm community, and both of them outshoot 90% of the guys that shoot competition shooting. Also,
Okay.
yeah. So Julie Galab used to be in the Army, and Jesse Harrison, her father got her into shooting, and she used to do like the cowboy action shooting, and then she came forward and started doing regular USPSA and 90 PA type shooting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I definitely gotta look them up. See?
Yeah, there you have it right there. All right, so now let me ask you this one because where were we at? All right, so what do you shoot? Because you said red dot over iron sights. So what are you carrying, and what do you prefer to shoot?
So I actually right now, because I'm deciding if I want to cut my slide or not, I'm actually carrying a Walther PPS M2 LE, and it has iron sights on it. It actually has night sights, but I'm debating if I want to get a red dot or not. It's just whatever red dot I get, once you cut your slide, I'm stuck with it. So I have an issue with my eye where I have stigmatism. So it's changing up on me almost every year. So I have adjusted from the actual red dot I used to use before to now I use the green triangle, and it sort of helps with my stigmatism. So I just worry that if I cut my slide for a certain optic and then I have an issue and I have to change it, then I have to do, everything all over again. But I do have a firearm with optic on it, which I also have for my home protection, which is my main home protection. And that is a Glock 17.
Okay. Now, have you ever had or been in a discussion of what's the best firearm protection for home, AR, handgun, or shotgun? Or have you even thought about that before?
I have had I had students ask me about stuff like that. I have been around instructors that are just talking about stuff like that. And, a lot of times people automatically be like, well, I think the best thing is the rifle, it's usually like, oh, it's the AR. And then sometimes you get, but the shotgun, I don't have to shoot as many shots, and then you get some people that are like, but the shotgun gonna take your arm off, especially my students. They will straight up be like, I have tried so many times to do a woman's shotgun class, and they will not do it. They will not. And I'm like, I'm telling you guys, it's not that bad. I'm like, we could put some birdshot in there. They're like, no. Like they're not trying to hear it. Yeah. So
yeah, a lot of times when I have that discussion about what is the best firearm for home protection, I run down everything. You know what I'm saying? Whereas why I think the shotgun is better, why do I think the AR is better, and why do I think the handgun may be better? But then again, you also got to look at it from the standpoint is that a lot of people can't afford the AR and the shotgun. They just have the handgun. Or they might just have one handgun, you know what I'm saying? So pretty much when I sum it all up, the answer pretty much is whatever you feel comfortable with shooting, if you have all three, or if you have a plethora of firearms, whatever you feel more comfortable shooting. But it really comes down to is how well trained are you on all of it?
Yeah, that is true.
Because you're going to resort back to the last thing that you're more familiar with. And you might not even pick up a firearm when somebody breaks into your home. You might just go hand to hand if that's what
right.
That's
what you know what you could do. Yep. That is so true. I agree with that.
Yeah. So let me see if I remember correctly. Rockstar's answers were a little bit different than yours on the quick fire. Yeah. Well, I think I'd be giving Rockstar such a hard time sometimes. She'd be like, "Oh Lord, I've been trying to forward think me, but she be out thinking me all the time. Yeah. So you have any more questions there, Rockstar?
I don't think so. I had a really good time listening to your story, Danny. Thanks again for coming on with us today.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
I do want to thank Rockstar for actually suggesting you, because actually I had like a lot of fun and learned a lot from listening to you also. And like, man, I should have like found out about you 4 years ago. So like that. Oh. But then again, like I said, I met Rockstar like not too long ago when we was in Tennessee. That was my first time meeting her. But the video that she had that went viral, I didn't know that was her video. Somebody else told me that. And I was like, oh, I saw that video. I didn't know that was her. It's like,
right.
Yeah. So but
yeah, she's awesome.
yeah, so I do thank you for coming on to the M-W Tactical podcast. And as I stated beforehand, thank you again, Rockstar, for suggesting Danny from Defensive Unicorns. And
Thank you, Rockstar.
yeah. So now before we depart, can you tell the good people how they can actually look you up, follow, reach out to you, get training with you, all the good stuff, social media?
Okay, so I have a business phone number, which is listed on my Instagram. My Instagram is under defensive_unicorns with an S. Once you go on my Instagram, I have a link tree. I have everything connected in my bio, which can take you to my email. It can take you to my business phone number. It can take you to my Facebook groups. It can take you everywhere. From there, I also post my classes pretty much all the time, unless I'm doing private classes or DV classes, which I don't post that much unless they allow it. But yeah, I'm really easy to get in contact with. People have reached out to me about private events, and they just text my phone like, hey, Danny, like they know me every day. And it's no big, listen, as long as it's business hours, I will answer. If it's an emergency and it's after business hours, I might still answer. As long as I see it and I'm available, I will definitely, I try to make myself as much accessible as I can, because, you know, when you're going through stuff, it isn't on the timeline, you know? So I try to be available for everybody. So Instagram is my biggest connect. Everything is connected through there. So,
well, since you're in Georgia, and it sounds like you're about 3 hours away from me, I might have to twist Rockstar's arm to take a road trip down to Atlanta, hang out with you, and do some training. You know,
that definitely sounds great. I would love it. I would love it. So, I'm always trying to learn new stuff, and I love, you know, sharing what I know. So I'm ready.
That's it. So we gotta wait for it to warm up so we could take the top down off the Jeep, because the Jeep should have about 400,000 miles on it now. Going down the interstate, and then we hit Georgia, do some training, and then make it a day adventure.
Right. It definitely sounds like a plan. Get some good food, you know, and keep that training going. I'm in.
That's it right there. So once again, thank you for coming on to the M-W Tactical podcast. And anytime you want to come on and promote anything you're doing, please do. As you stated earlier, but I don't think we said it in the show, that your next class might not take place until around after March time.
Yeah.
But please, everybody, head on over to defensiveunicorns.com and look at her training schedule and see what she has to offer. And everybody take a road trip down to Georgia and pay her a visit. And if you do decide to make that trip, let me know so I can go ahead and tell Rockstar I'll pay for the gas in the Jeep, and we take that road trip and come down there and join you in a training session.
Yes, it sounds great. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. You guys made me so comfortable. I love it. I can't wait to talk to you guys again.
Hey, that's the name of the game. We gotta have fun when we do this stuff, right? All right. So if everybody will, like I said, please head on over and give Danny a visit on her Instagram, Facebook, and everything else that she's a part of. Go check out her website. And for us, please make sure you go head on over to Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, LinkedIn. Just do a search for @M_W Tactical and head on over to the YouTube channel. As we already stated beforehand, that once we hit 1,000 subscribers, we will be doing our giveaway. Now, of course, if you want to follow Rockstar, you can do so at.
You can find me on Instagram at rockstarburst. That's rockstar BERST. Feel free to follow along in my crazy stories or send me some cute animal videos or any tips or tricks to deck out my AR. Yeah. I'm open to all those things.
Hey, there you have it right there. So once again, another episode is coming to an end, but don't fret, we will be back next Tuesday. So as we always say when we end the show, keep shooting, keep practicing, and have fun. Y'all take care now.